Ian Meacham, I've long awaited to have you on the podcast. How excited to have you on.
It's good to be here.
Yeah.
My first podcast ever. So you're taking my virginity of podcasts. So
let's go. I've done it plenty of times before. I know what I'm doing.
It could be concerning, but we'll see how it goes.
So I don't usually do research on people before they come on because I like to hear it first up. But there's a few keynote things that stood out. Winner of 40 under 40, delivering over $30 million worth of work per year from your company, and obviously founder, I don't know if founder is the right word, of Toby for childhood cancer.
Yep, one of, yep.
Those three things are all pretty huge.
Yeah.
What's this? I don't want to choose the order. What's the standout thing? Well, out of those three things, talk to me. What's the one that?
Which one stands out the most
to you?
I don't know. There's one that stands out the most. I think they all kind of go hand in hand to a certain extent, and I think the thing that's probably stood out the most when you say it like that is that, with CPD and the businesses we have and the charity, they wouldn't be as successful as they are without a group of people putting in effort. Certainly not just me. So, the charity is very much tied to the company. There's a lot of relationships from business that I've made over the years that are people that sit on the board of the charity,
right,
and donate their time and donate their skills and expertise to make the charity successful. So they kind of they work together and they work separately. So one success has helped the other, and that's the main thing.
Yeah. So I think hand in hand is the right metaphor there. So all right, let's go back to. Your company is, I always get the acronym back to front.
CPD.
CPD.
Right. Constructive PD is the actual company name, and CPD is the abbreviation, yeah.
Right. So CPD has been around for how long?
So CPD, if I go back to the start, the first company was in 2013 was Timber Insight.
That's right.
Timber Insight actually had 3 divisions. So we had a consultancy, a construction arm, and an engineering division as well.
Yep.
And that business sort of grew and diversified. And then in 2016, those businesses were all separated. So Timber Insight kept doing consulting. Constructive PD became the construction arm.
Yep.
And we set up Ingenuity Engineering, which was the engineering arm. So that separation occurred in 2016 and involved some other parties getting involved in the business and buying in shares, and essentially allowed us to continue to grow those businesses in different directions.
Right. So you've had 10 years of essentially like a branching of a consolidated sort of idea. Those 3 things are now obviously grown into their own sort of like superpowers of themselves. What was the team size like before that separation?
Well, that's a good question. 2016, I reckon we probably had maybe 8 or 10 staff at that point in time. Yeah.
So you've gone from, and now just in CBD, how many staff members do you have there?
Today we'd have between 80 and 90.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the thing that I'm saying here is, we're a 2-person operation from home. We're trying to get as much volume out with the capacity that we have. And my sort of metric for what the future looks like is how can we essentially not widen the bottleneck, but just be as efficient as we can with that bottleneck. I'm not looking to get staff. I'm not looking to, the one thing I hear from businesses with a lot of staff is you essentially just are cultivating culture the whole time to make sure that it can run as smoothly as possible. So talk to me, even a staff of 8 to 10 people, you're still essentially that's how many families are you looking after? Now you've got, 80 people. You've now almost got an entire town that you're making sure that things are going well for. Talk to me about the pressure of that.
Yeah, look, it does. Early days in particular, I felt a lot of pressure from that. And I think a lot of us get into business to make money in the first place. That's, tends to be the driving factor, is to either take control of your income or take control of your own livelihood, if that makes sense.
Yep.
As I started to employ more people and as the business started to grow, it changed, and that yes, the businesses need to make money, but it really became about this amazing team that we were building, and you feel this overalling responsibility for those people,
Yep.
that you are providing a livelihood. And if we're able to provide...
I have to let this dog out. I'm sorry.
Good communicator.
Yeah.
So if we're able to provide a really solid employment for people, we're able to provide a safe and a good culture and a place where people want to come to work, the loyalty that created and the team we were building, that almost became more important than the making the money part.
Yeah, the primary driver then turns into
was
this.
the most rewarding, and still is the most rewarding part. Like seeing our team succeed, seeing people's careers, moving forward. We've had people working with our business now for, I think, our longest serving employee now is sitting around 11 years.
Wow.
And to see the progression of our team and their skills and their development and their earning more money and in coming to work and enjoying work, that's the most rewarding thing that we do. So when that's your focus, I guess then building culture around that becomes quite easy.
Yeah, I know, like a sort of like alignment that I see is the more I focus on obviously delivering the best customer experience for my customers, that tends to lead to repeat business. You have this like frictionless, like, oh, we got an email and it converted into this much money. Like, oh, that's really good. Whereas when you sort of focus 100% on the money, which is very early days things, you're like, I'm just trying to, put food on the plate, fuel on my car type thing. It seems to almost, it's like when you're talking to girls, they can sense that you're like desperate. They get further away, and money's the same thing. And then when you start just going like, no, let's look at the business. Where can we improve? Where can we do things? That gets better. The rest of the business gets better organically. Yeah. And I feel like staff is just like maybe 2 or 3 levels away from where I'm sitting right now. With that said, don't want staff. I'm always very interested about that. I feel like a lot of pressure just to provide for my fiance. And as my parents get older, being able to provide for them as well. So I feel like this staff thing is just like an exaggerated version of that, but multiplies the bigger your business gets. Yeah. And it feels like, I don't know, honestly, like I look at people like yourself and like Jordan GM Fran and people who have these big businesses with a lot of staff members. I'm like, how do you sleep at night knowing these people are just like, yep, he's going to pay me on Thursday?
Yeah, look, early days. Tanya reminds me of this quite often when, early days there was a lot of stress and there was a lot of lack of sleep. I used to have a whiteboard next to my bed, because I wouldn't be able to sleep, and I would write things on that whiteboard so that I could get them out of my head and go to sleep. Basically,
classic entrepreneur shit. Yeah,
and lots to the point in a number of times where I was making myself physically sick, and it was actually anxiety. Like I didn't actually realise what was making me sick, but it was this build-up of anxiety where I was in situations where I was no longer in control of a decision. So it might be at like the final stages of a contract negotiation where you've done everything you can from our side and you're really just waiting for an answer. And, I would end up, bloody terrible stomach cramps and quite sick. And it was actually after that time that I realised that it was anxiety. I was so anxious about it that I was getting sick. And you go through these phases in the business where you are under a huge amount of pressure and there's a lot of stress there, but it comes and goes. Businesses go in waves, and sometimes they're easy and then some things come along and it makes it more difficult for a period of time, but you always have to know where that next point is where that pressure will come off. And you're looking at that going, right, what do I need to do to get there? Is that new people in new positions? Is that a shift in the type of services we're providing? Is it a different type of client base? What is it that we need to do to get past this point? Because getting stuck there is not an option. You have to move forward.
Yeah, I feel like business is almost this great like test or training for life. Like I tend to find the better I get at business, the better I get at everything fairly like linearly. It's like, the better I am at business, the better I am at problem solving, even, with Larissa or I always use like partner and parents because they're like the things that really matter in your life. But even like dealing with customer relations that aren't going the right way, and then you sort of go like, well, who's at fault here? And you go, well, they fucking did this and I wanted this to happen. It's like, but if I had done this a step before, then that wouldn't have allowed it to get to this point. So, the responsibility falls on me. You have a little head-to-head with your friends and they go, well, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And you're like, oh, if I had just done one thing better the day before, that wouldn't eventually, it's on me. the parallels seem to be like the further you get in business, just seem to be more and more prevalent.
Yep.
It's so interesting.
And when you're running a business, at the end of the day, like say things might happen or something might happen with a staff member or something might go wrong on a project, and it might be easy to point the finger at someone and say, well, you did something wrong or this or that. But at the end of the day, my first port of call is, well, what have we done wrong as managers that's allowed that to occur, and what can we change to make sure that circumstance doesn't arise again?
Right.
And sometimes it might be due to someone's made a poor decision, but if they've made that poor decision in what they thought was for the right reasons, you can't hold that against someone. You've got to back them in and go, all right, well, for this reason, next time we might do it a different way, and and let them go. You can't necessarily just be criticising people, but all the time. But obviously, the first port of call is the buck stops with the management. The buck stops with us. So what structures can we change? What processes can we put in place? What do we need to change to make sure that circumstances doesn't arise again?
Right. Okay, let's look at it from the other perspective. Do you think there's anything in life that you replicate when dealing with those problems in business?
I think definitely obviously the maturity I've had to grow up a lot in business over the years, but I think there's a line where business has to stop, and obviously your relationships, which are with your partner and your family and those sorts of things, you do learn a lot about communication, and really good communication in your relationship is important. I'm often probably not as good at it as I could be, but you learn, and you've got to keep learning and changing what you're doing to make sure that you're moving forward, essentially. And certainly with Logan, with my son, as he's growing up, trying to set the example for him and talk to him about communication, be able to talk about how he's feeling and how he's going, particularly with everything he's had to go through. There's a lot that we do in business that you can take into your personal life, but I think as well, you can sometimes get caught trying to manage. I'm a manager, for the lack of a better word, in business, but if you try and manage your personal life, that can also not go too well sometimes as well. So there needs to be a line, and I think the hardest times with that were back when I was working from home, and you do that.
Talk to me about it.
You work from home all the time, and but having that delineation between I'm at work and now I'm at home with my family, and being able to draw the lines between those things, particularly as the businesses grew and got busier and more intense, was really important. So having that clear separation between business and home was really important.
It's an entire skill set, right?
Yeah.
It really is. I even find, and I talk about a lot on the podcast, like the skill set of Sundays, like being able to go, no, like yesterday, I spent like 9 hours on the couch. I was hungover, but I spent 9 hours on the couch, not thinking like, I should probably, or this needs to be done, or on Friday I didn't quite get this. Dude, fuck all of that. It's Sunday. Yep. I really don't care. Unless the world is going to stop turning, if I don't do it, I don't care. Yep. And even if it means wake up early tomorrow, that's fine. But that is a skill. And I find a lot of, especially, I'm still first 5 years of business, a lot of people who are in the same scenario as me have that like Gary Vee, Alex Hormozy, like, fuck it, you've just got to work 25 hours a day. You just got to do the thing. It's like, for sure. But once you're at a point where you're paying yourself a wage, and that wage is not relying on you working 25 hours a day, then you need to be able to switch off. Yes. Otherwise you will burn out.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that ends up in failure. You're going to end up delivering a worse product or service. You're going to treat your staff wrong. You're going to treat your customers wrong. The process is going to break down. Yep. Like I can't have a proper conversation for 2 hours on a podcast if I'm rocking up tired. And it's like, it's the exact same thing. I can't do a proper print. I can't do a delivery with a smile on my face. I can't answer the email right if I'm half over here or if I'm still, so that I feel like that acknowledging these skills as something that you, like you said before, you need to continuously learn. You need to always be going, where are the gaps in my character or my system or my process? So I can go, there's a problem. I'm going to work on those next. And then being able to actually identify the skill set within those and then get good at that skill.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's my whole life, hey? That is my whole life in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's a tough balance. And I think I was saying before, like that's that that rise and fall. Like sometimes you've got to put in the 18, 19-hour days because something's not right or something needs to be resolved or a key member in the team is away or sick or something's happening and you've got to jump in and make it happen. But you can't do that long term because
it doesn't work.
The end result will be a bad one. You've got to be able to do that for a period of time to get to another point where you're not doing that anymore.
Right.
Because if you do that, I guess some personality types and some people can do that, but I'm certainly not one of them. I would burn myself out pretty quickly. Yeah.
The ability to sit on the spin bike for 3 days straight is not a good thing.
It's not fun.
So you mentioned before that maybe communication isn't your strongest point. You have no trouble articulating what's in your mind from what I can tell with the limited amount of conversations we've had now and in the past. What would you say would be your weakness with communication?
I think there's probably too much going on in my head sometimes. That entrepreneurial brain is always thinking about, what's the next opportunity, what's the next thing we could be doing. Your brain's always on, and thinking about the future, if that makes sense. And sometimes then communicating that to the team about where we want to go and what we want to do, and being clear on that. That's really important because you need your team all walking in the same direction. And if you're not able to articulate that well, then that's difficult for them to get on board with. So
for sure,
it's certainly something I have worked on and need to continue to work on because being able to articulate a plan or a strategy or a path that we want to go down is really important in my role. And having a bright idea and then not being able to get the team on board with it and walking in the same direction means that we're never going to get there. So we need everyone working together to get to the goals that we have. For sure.
It's funny you mentioned the entrepreneurial brain. I mentioned before we started recording, I woke up at 4. I had my alarm for 4:30.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm not quite feeling it. And I went back to sleep until about 6. And for an hour and a half, all I dreamt was, Ian Meacham's on the podcast today. Have you got the podcast ready? Have you got all his T-shirts ready? No, he didn't order T-shirts. You should wake up, get the podcast. Oh my! I may as well just got up at 4:30. I literally had the same dream on repeat about you being on the podcast. That's entrepreneurial shit. Hey, you're just like you've got a priority. You've got to get up. It's Monday.
Yep.
Ridiculous. So I've found that I'm in this really exciting stage of business actually, where all of these great ideas that I had when you're sort of on the, you're building all the processes, getting all the equipment, doing all the stuff. It's like, when this is all established, I'm gonna create a catalog and I'm gonna try this marketing campaign. I'm gonna do, pounding the pound. I'm gonna do this. But a lot of those things weren't applicable or really like suitable for the timing I was in. But I'm sort of in this timing now where I can revisit these big ideas I had then and sort of apply them. Yep. Now, if there's steps in business, let's say you're at like step 100, I might be at step like 8 to 12, somewhere in there. So talk to me, how, like, you have a lot of ideas, and out of all those ideas, there's a handful of them that are good, and there's a handful of those that are great. The application and the timing of those obviously sort of changes as business grows. What's been your experience in that regard?
Yeah, look, you have good ideas and you have good ideas that you think good ideas, and then you start building a business plan around them and thinking about how you monetize them. And, sometimes they don't work out to be good ideas. So I think as that entrepreneurial view is, you need to have more good ideas than you have what you think are good ideas that might not be.
Yeah.
Everything we've done has not necessarily been a success. I've done training programs. I've built apps. I've done lots of different businesses that have never got off the ground, and we've invested money in and have failed essentially. We even we've recently developed a software program which hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment for a market which needs it, wants it. They want to use it, but and they want. It's a requirement in the market, but the client base that we've got don't really want to pay for it. So it's not a very, very successful system if it does everything it's supposed to do. The consumer wants to use it. They love the platform. They love how it works, but they don't want to pay for it. So one key point.
Yeah.
Luckily for us, we're able to then implement that software and that development into our own business and leverage all that data and all that information ourselves. So it's not like it's a complete failure, but certainly what we set out for it to be is not where it's ended up. So I think, there's certainly a lot of good ideas that come along, and we've had some great successes like with CPD and the Timber Insight guys and the Asset Works boys that are working now, and things are going really well in those businesses. But at the end of the day, there's also been things that we've done that have been my ideas that we've gone and invested in, and we've gone and done them, and they've been failures. So you've got to be able to own those failures and learn from them and move on. So and if you learn from them and take them into the next one, hopefully you're not repeating those same mistakes.
We turn a full stop into a pivot, right?
Yes.
Instead of just going like, oh, there's all that money gone. It's like, okay, cool. Well, this thing works. The structure's there. It's built. What's the application if we plug it in sideways rather than forwards?
That's it.
Yeah, I think that's what you were telling me about when we previously caught up. How you're like, we did all this, and then right at the end you're like, it's not even what we use it for, but it's still really powerful.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think in the pivoting process, I guess in the learning process as well, there's a lot of ego death in business, and that also goes alongside sport as well. You tend to find like I used to race, like I was a speed skater, and like if you win 100 times, it's great, but if you lose 100 times and still show up, that's kind of better. Because you get so much more from going like, okay, I'm not him. I'm not the winner. I'm not on the podium. No one says, oh yeah, go Jack as I go past. But then when you do win, you sort of get to swallow that pride a little bit easier, because it's like, you're not like, I'm the shit. You're like, no, I deserve to be here. It's different. Obviously, alongside other experiences you've had in your life, there's been a lot of ego death. How do you think that affects how you sit here now as a businessman doing such big business?
Look, I like to think I'm pretty humble. I think that's been a big part of it. Like I don't feel like, I think that's very important. It's something I talked to Logan, my son, about, is that, being humble is really important in life. And, I guess the resilience and being humble are probably the two things that I've learned a lot about over this period. But, I think, I don't know if I'm answering your question directly.
Dude, it's a long-winded question. So don't.
I think the reflecting back on it, having successes and failures along the way, in all of those, you can't be that extreme. I'm jumping, doing cartwheels because I've had success, and I'm curled up, tucked up in a ball because I've had a failure. You kind of got to take it in your stride and move on to what's the next thing, whether it is a great success or it is a failure. And being consistent, particularly when you've got a team of people that you're looking after, being consistent and being level-headed, and being able to take things in your stride without those extremes of emotion is really important. And I'd like to think that I'm pretty good at that I don't tend to get too wound up, and I don't tend to fly off the handle and it be
like a
crushing souls kind of thing. I'm pretty cool, calm, and collected, and able to take those things in my stride and move forward. Whether that and with the team, be able to say, all right, well, what's next? How do we resolve this and move on to the next thing?
Do you think, like, I register wins and fails almost in the same sort of arena? Like, I think one of the easiest ways to sort of visualize this is I post a lot of content across a lot of platforms, and on each platform you get different types of comments. So on YouTube they tend to be fairly aggressive and negative, and on Facebook they can be fairly aggressive and positive or negative, like especially political stuff. On Instagram it's only positive. It's really only positive. On TikTok it's, dude, fuck you, everything under the sun. And the comment on Instagram that says like, man, like this is inspirational, you did this, I'm look at me glowing myself up, by the way, you should be so proud of what you've done, it's inspired me to do this, and I love this that you've done, I love that, all in one comment, big paragraph. And then you go to YouTube and I posted the IVF video that I did, a solo podcast a little while ago, and one of the clips on that got a comment from this bloke saying like, you forced your missus to do IVF because you got a vasectomy and you're selfish, and like she would have never had to go through all this hormone imbalance, like fuck you, blah blah blah. Both of them give me the same response. Both of them get my heart rate up like by about 5 beats per minute, and both of them I don't take on board. because both of them will do the same amount of damage in the long run. Yep. And that's really hard to explain to people who don't have any sort of parallel situation or post a lot online. Because you go, oh, take the good and throw away the bad. It's like, no, because then I start becoming what the good wants me to be. Just the same as I start becoming what the bad wants me to be. Yep. And this is almost a parallel to like big successes and big failures in business. Because if you start identifying with the success, well, everything I touch turns to gold. What should I do? Well, if you start identifying with the failure, everything I do turns to shit. What should I do?
Yep.
It's the same thing.
It's a mindset.
It's a mindset. So the successes and failures that I deal with, I register as blips on a map. Obviously, with what you've said, you're experiencing things in a similar way. My question is, the zeros on the end of your failures and successes are so much substantial compared to mine. How do you manage those things? Like, I know obviously the ripple effect of that is your staff. But at the end of the day, you are dealing with numbers that are catastrophic compared to most people's experience. How does that factor into the emotional result of what happens, do you think?
The dollars and cents probably don't, I guess they don't come into it as much anymore. Like that's important. Like the business runs on finance, essentially. You win jobs, you need to do jobs for a budget, and the jobs need to be profitable, and if the projects are profitable, the business is profitable. And obviously talking about CPD here, and it sounds simple, but there's a lot of moving parts in the jobs part of it. I think a lot of those wins and failures are, like you say, if you have more wins than you have failures, you'll be okay. And a lot of from our business going through its growth, a lot of our focus, particularly over the last 3 or 4 years, we grew very quickly. But because we grew so quickly, the numbers of jobs which were going bad and the numbers of jobs that were going good, there were too many going bad and not enough going good. So you end up with this position where the business is marginal in its profitability. So your profitable jobs are great. They're making good money. But then you've got jobs that are dragging on the profitable jobs, essentially. So you need a good mix where, from time to time in the building industry, you're going to have a job that it's just not a good job.
Right.
And obviously if you sign a $12, $15 million contract on a project and it's a good job and it is a good project, that job might go for 18 months or 2 years. It's a good job for 2 years.
Yep.
But if that's a bad job, it's a bad job for 18 months or 2 years.
Okay. It's such a slow, painful death, dude.
It can be painful. I've had a few of those for quite some time. But in the same way, getting a mixture of large contracts and smaller contracts. So the contracts that we work on can be anything from sort of $500,000 to $1 million up to our largest contracts we've delivered $19, $20 million.
Huge.
So if your small jobs, so say $1 million job, that if that's good, it's good for a short period of time. And if it's bad for a short period of time. So big jobs are good for a long time, bad for a long time. So what we had to start getting a mix of was mixing our product mix of small projects and large projects so that we weren't wholly reliant on one or the other. We had a mixture of
cash flow stabilizing sort of technique?
Yeah, well, cash flow is always 30 and a month, everything we do. So we carry everything for 60 days essentially, but it's about making sure that at the time we were managing risk. It was all about managing risk of where our projects were profitable and not profitable. And essentially what we did at that point, we grew very quickly. So in 2016, I actually had to look back on this. I had to look back on this yesterday because I couldn't actually remember. But in 2016, CPD turned over $2.1 million.
Yep.
So, and then through to 2022, we turned over $31 million. So that 6-year period was a huge amount of growth. And we really had to pull the handbrake on and go, look, there's too much. This is too loose for how big we've become. So we spent basically the last 3 years implementing a whole heap of financial management systems and procedures. We've got implemented essentially a project management system that automatically syncs with all of our accounting data, accounting software, and it allows us to get extremely accurate financial information on projects. It allows our project teams to make better decisions because they've got better information to make those decisions. We're working on live data instead of data that might be 30 days old once you've done all your reconciliations from the previous month. And we now have far, far less poor projects. So
Right.
if you've got, for us now, if most of our projects are successful and profitable projects, then you're maximising the profit that the business can make. Whereas if you've got only one small job or two small jobs that might not be performing how you want them to, they're far outweighed by the rest of the revenue that you're generating. So
Right.
it's all about that risk management, and we didn't have that right 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, of course.
And now we're in a much better position where we've been able to consolidate and put all those processes in place.
This is a thing. This is a scaling thing, though, right?
Yes.
Because there's a lot of things that it's sort of like there's. I'm going to pick a number, 5 key things that you need to get good at as your business grows, and you just like sort of rotate through those 5 things, and you go to like a stage of like, oh, we can make heaps more money if we do this, so we do this, and then in that you realize like actually it's sort of like bottlenecks our process here, or it burns us out over there, or whatever, or like you figured out there's some projects that do really well, some projects do really bad. And then once you get that honed in, you go, all right, now we need better systems. All right, we've got better systems, now we need better culture. And by the time you get to the 5th thing, you usually have to go back to the first thing, right? So I think that like that sort of makes sense, that you like scale so rapidly, and then you go, all right, this house metaphor for the business is standing, but it's built on stilts at the moment. We need to get really good at building, support. We need to put a better roof on. We need to get
Exactly
bigger,
right.
all the stuff,
You need the foundations to be stronger.
Yeah. I guess you could probably fill in the construction metaphor a bit better than me. But
I think the one thing in there as well is that you need to understand your own strengths and weaknesses. And I think, again, you really need to be good at that. And as you grow, you don't, for yourself, if you're just staying as a small operation, it's not such an issue. But if businesses want to scale, you have to also be able to be good at finding people who are better at the things I'm not good at.
Right.
And when the business grew, we needed to become much more systems and processes orientated, much more diligent in the way that we ran the operation of the business. And I'm quite a hands-off manager, and that's that entrepreneurial sort of view, is that you tend to be, a bit airy-fairy, if that makes sense. You're not down in the trenches and in the detail as much as you probably should be, and it's not a strong point for me. It's not something I like doing, and it's not something I'm good at. So,
as in being in the trenches or being airy-fairy?
I'm fine with the airy-fairy and coming up with bright ideas and having and all of that, but particularly once we went into Perth and things are much more contractual, and you need to be much more diligent in the way that you operate and the way that you run your jobs and the way you run your contract. I was too hands off for that, and my management style wasn't the right management style. So
okay,
that was we went and we found an operations manager to work in the business up there and fill that operations role, and he has a much different management style to me. And that's what we needed. That's what the business needed. And although we look at things differently, that's a strength. That's what makes us stronger. Is that he's good at things that I'm not good at.
Yep.
It's the same as our people and culture manager. She's fantastic at looking after our people and thinking about their needs and what they need. Whereas having our finance manager, who's been with us for 11 years, like she's down in the detail. Everything's perfect, super diligent. That's not me.
Yeah.
So you've got to find those people that are really good at the things that you're not good at.
Yeah. And then when you get them, keep them.
Look after them and keep them.
Do everything you can. So just remind me. So 2016, we're at 2.1 turnover, and then was it 2022? You got to
2022 was 31.
31. All right. So in 6 years, you've essentially. It's huge. So is this the 40 under 40? Is this like one of the metrics that they use to gauge your?
Yeah, look, the 40 under 40 is they obviously look at your business and your CPD as a business and the entrepreneurial sort of view on that, and the success of the business and growth. But a big part of 40 under 40 is also community. How you impact your community in a positive way. What you're doing in philanthropy. There's a lot more criteria in it than just how successful has your business been? It's really trying to find the process was quite confronting actually for me to go through, and I had some help from an amazing sort of writer, and I guess she specialised in marketing, Kylie, who helped me write the submission for the 40 under 40.
Yep.
Is
she local?
No, she's Perth based.
Okay.
And Colin, who's one of our shareholders, directors, he's dealt with her before, and we got in touch, and you have to essentially go through and talk through from the start about how you set the business up. Obviously, talk through the challenges we've had with Toby and all of that through the COVID period, and then the charity and all those sorts of things. It was actually a really confronting process to talk through on that reflection, but it was a good one to do. But it's great it was great to be one of the top, I say, in the 40 under 40 and nominated in the top 4. But I think even more so, CPD picking up the medium-sized business of the year, and that recognition for the whole team was also probably the highlight of that night. So,
of course, because it's more of it goes back to that group thing. It's not about you; it's about everyone.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a bit of anything that's an individual award or individual recognition never sits that comfortably.
Yeah.
Because you don't do what CPD's done by yourself. There's been a lot of other people that have contributed to that over a long period of time, who we would not be where we are without them. So it's not all about me, that's for sure.
Did you play team sports growing up?
Played a bit of hockey when I was a kid, but I was through my teenage years played a lot of golf, which is not really a team sport.
Yeah, very solo.
But with a good group of mates who are still those guys that I played golf with now are still some of my closest friends. So worked at the golf course at the Sanctuary and picked up the range balls and all sorts of things. So so no, not a lot of team sports.
All right. And do you have brothers or sisters?
Yep, I've got an older brother who I'm in business with, Glenn. So and an older sister Glenn's 4 years older and my sister's 6 years older, Kelly. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I just obviously you try and draw correlations there. If you grew up playing football and you're the middle child, it's like that's why you don't like having all the stars on you. Yeah. I'm an only child and I grew up playing a solo sport, and I have no problem being in the spotlight. Hence having a podcast and being able to talk solo to a camera for 2 hours, shit like that. But I think it's so. Do you think you have an active imagination?
I probably used to. I don't think I do as much anymore.
No.
No. I think in terms of that entrepreneurial side of things, where you kind of always look at something and go, can that be a business or can that be a concept and those sorts of things. I think I'm quite imaginative in that way, but I'm certainly not artistic, put it that way.
I think that's a common misconception about imagination. Hey, because I'm not artistic, but I'm in a creative field. I've only so recently, probably like 3 years ago, and I'm like, I'm a creator. I create things. I get and like a lot of artists. I know I said it's not the same, but like a lot of artists get this person's work and that person's work, and they sort of like are inspired by them to create their work. But you can tell like, that's just a mix of this and that put together, but it's from this person's hand, so they're now the artist, right? And I think that structure of thought is very applicable to like business is obviously what you and I funnel all of our creativity through. I listen to how all of these business owners that are doing better than me do their business, and then I'm inspired by them to create the things in my business. Like you can essentially break down Outfit Co into a series of Jordan Gianfrancesco's good ideas that he's given me and then I've executed. Does it make it his business or mine? Yeah. So it's I think the idea that having an active imagination and being like artistically creative, that they can be in the same pot, don't get me wrong. Yeah. If you get an artist who can also run a business, dude, there is no stopping them. Yeah. But I think like I'm bad for it. I see the kids down on the corner here squeezing lemons, making lemonade. Every time I see him, you pull over and give him $20 because you're like, keep doing this. Yeah. Whatever this is, like it doesn't need to be lemonade. Do whatever, dude. Shine shoes.
Do something.
Do something, And you were probably much the same as me. I was stealing cigarettes from my parents and selling them at 14 because I could.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like turning from something at nothing into something.
Yeah, well, me and my brother used to go and wash cars at $5 a pop around the suburbs. And
Perfect.
I think I grew up in a Christian family at church every Sunday. I think for a while there we used to even try and get a captured audience where once church finished we'd have all our car washing stuff there and we'd go and offer to wash everyone's cars in the car park. So we were doing that from a pretty young age and doing the paper round and doing all those things to try and get a bit of pocket money in the pocket.
How old were you when you got your first job?
I would have been 15 or 16. I was at the Sanctuary collecting range balls, and then I eventually got a job in the pro shop there at the golf course. So I left school thinking I was going to be a professional golfer. I went and worked at the Sanctuary. I used to do either 6 a.m. till 12 or 12 till 6 when you worked. So you'd spend half a day at work and then either the morning or the afternoon playing golf.
Yeah,
so,
perfect.
Got pretty good at golf, but unfortunately at 16, 17, my mindset and my patience might have been a bit immature at the time, which is a pretty important part of being good at golf. So,
dude,
that definitely held me back.
It sucks because the athletic endeavor, like for the sake of the conversation, went semi-pro. We'll call it semi-pro. I lived in Europe, was on a team, travelled, competed once to 3 times a week for a year. When it came to winter, like my team gave me all the ice gear and were like, go try. We don't expect you to do anything crazy, but did very entry World Cup qualifying times. The problem is when you're at the peak of when you should be building that base of being an athlete. At that time for me, I was 17 years old, and you sort of peak around 23 to 25 as a speed skater.
Yep.
Well, you know what else is peaking at 17? All your hormones. You're oh, girls exist, partying exists. I'm in Europe, by the way. This is fucking crazy.
Yep.
And so you really have to make a choice of am I a speed skater or am I a normal dude?
Yep.
And that divide is that's literally the men from the boys in sporting, because you're those dudes that are just you can tell they're weird to talk to because they haven't been in social situations because they've been training.
Yep.
You're oh, I bet you he's quick. I bet you he's really fucking quick.
Yeah.
It's a slow heartbreak when for me it was when I realized I think I'm a normal person more than I'm a speed skater.
Yeah. And I think at the heart of every professional athlete there's a normal person, but they've usually got that little bit of I think of obviously Australian Open tennis has just finished, and you look at a few of the really high ranking tennis players and you can see they've all got a bit of OCD. They like things to be exactly the way they want them to be, and
of course
they're perfectionists. They want everything to be perfect, and if you've got that bit of a streak in your genetics, in your personality, I think that goes a long way to being able to prioritize that over all these other things that are going on. And not everyone has that. Sometimes it might be from parenting, but no, I don't think I have that.
No?
No.
You're not a Pennzoil facing the same way? And
I like things to be neat, but if anyone looks at my desk at work, then they know I'm not OCD. So there's definitely a bit of I'm the one that everyone's cleaning up after, unfortunately. So
right,
need to set a better example there. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's when I sort of I find the average of all the big sort of seasons in my life. There's moved around heaps as a kid, speed skating for 9 years or something, and then 8 years, and then got into mining because Dad had a mining business, and then black ink, coffee van, driving road trains, bit of a holiday for 2 years, and then this. When I look at all the big lessons that I got from everything, I can definitely see they're acclimated into what I'm doing now, and the determination part of being an athlete is 100%. I won't fail. Yep. In 10 years' time, this will just be heaps bigger, whatever that means. And I think it will be the podcast, not the clothing. The systems in mining, you got safety and here's how we do things. You got a checklist. I was a process operator, so you got a checklist of shit that you do every day. And where actually it have this longer term thing where that thing up there, we're trying to get it to be a bit more efficient, or we're trying to get it a bit more safe, or whatever it is. It's not going to happen this swing or this month. It's going to probably take a year. Yep. So the idea that things can be a slow revolution that are getting better. The coffee van of building community, knowing honing in the customer experience on a 5-minute transaction. You know, being able to have that perfect conversation, leave people smiling, add a little bit of extra value, and then going into road trains, which again is like very, you've got this job to do in this amount of time, and you're going to take this amount of time to do it. So it's a whole different version of like this system that's based off time, not efficiency.
Yep.
And then also the living in a caravan for 2 years, dude. The shit I learned living in a caravan. You know, here you've got a cable tie, a shitty pair of side cutters and a bit of plastic and some poly, and you need to fix that part of your caravan. Go, you know. So it's like being
make it happen.
Yeah, like just resourceful and like seeing problems in a different sort of like dynamic. And now I'm in this situation where I'm like, give me a problem. I will. If I can't solve it straight away, I'll find someone who can. We'll get it done. You know. Yep. And I think being able to, like, there were plenty of times when I was driving trucks, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? I'm smarter than this. You know, I'm not put myself on a pedestal, but like that dude over there driving trucks, he can do that. I feel like I shouldn't have to do this, you know? But then I look back and go, actually, it was because I sat in a chair for 12 hours at a time thinking, if I had a podcast, I'd say this. And if I had a business, I'd do it like this. And if I was going to start doing, you know, like all that time I got to reflect that, then you get to pull forward and go, oh, it was all for something. Do you feel like where you're at now, there's any similarities in like maybe the lessons you learned in an uncomfortable position before that add to the story now?
Yeah, I think it all contributes. Everything along the way changes your perspective and gives you new insights into life, essentially. Obviously, there's lots of things along the way in business and wins and losses, and obviously, right back to growing up in a Christian family all the way through to now. Like, I look back, I'm not a overly religious person myself, but I look at the values that I have, and they were instilled in me as a child when I was growing up in the church. So, I like to think I'm a pretty ethical person. We always do we always do the right thing. If something doesn't feel right, then we don't do that, and that's sort of at the core of who we are. That's just the way we are. And sometimes the construction industry is a pretty challenging industry to work in. You are faced with a lot of circumstances where people don't necessarily operate that way. So you are sometimes at conflict with your own values, with the industry that you have to work in, or the industry that we work in. So, but we don't waver from what those core values are, and that's what essentially drives our decision making and what we do. But all of those, from a child growing up in the church to all the lessons that I've learned through then, and obviously a huge portion of that is the stuff that we had to deal with Toby, and that changes your whole perspective as well. Prior to Toby being diagnosed, we had plans to open offices in Sydney or Melbourne. I was flying to Sydney and Melbourne to look at which was the right state for us to establish an office in. We were shortlisted on a massive contract on the Westgate Tunnel project in Melbourne. We were flying to New Zealand with the head contractor for that project. We had, essentially, we were doing it. And then coming away from that and Toby's diagnosis, had no ambition at all to go and do those things. So there's lots of things along the way that change your perspective and change what's important, and that allowed us just to refocus on our business here and focus on our people here, and being as good as what we are, as good as what we can be at what we do here, rather than having this, we had this world-conquering view that, we wanted. So I shouldn't say we. I had this world-conquering view that I needed to achieve this and I needed to do this, and reality, look back on it and go, why do I need to do that? Why do we need to achieve that? Is that the best thing for my family? Probably not. They're going to see less of me, and I'm going to be around less. So taking on those risks and doing that, is that the right thing? And in reality, after that, had no ambition to do that whatsoever. So all those little things through life change your perspective and change your view on what's important. And I'm sure that that's going to continue to happen. I think as we get older, hopefully less and less so as we hone in on what's important. But it will continue to happen. There's always going to be things that will continue to guide us and change a view or change our perspective on something.
I think that's the common thread here is always not being scared to change, right?
Exactly.
I feel like a lot of men, I don't know what the age is from my anecdotal experience that I've had with men in my life and with people that I've spoken to on the podcast. It seems to be this like 30 to 40 range where they sort of like hit a wall and they're like, this is who I am. You know, I'm someone who does this on Friday nights. I'm someone who only associates myself with these people. I'm someone who works this job. That's what I believe I'm capable of. I earn this much money a year, and that's it. That's my story. And now my job is to live that story out and have kids and then tell my kids that's the story that we live.
Yeah, forever honing in on what's important.
I feel like that, I feel like both can be true at the same time. That you can hone in on what's important with blinders on, or you can hone into what's important with an eager spirit to see if there's more, right? And obviously you've had some experiences that not at all by choice have forced you to go, why? That was one of your questions, why?
Yep.
And in another context, I feel like you can also have these experiences by just, I mean, from my point of view, a complete observational nature. You know, like, why is my neighbor doing so fucking well at 60? What did you do? How'd that happen? You know, and how come my other neighbor, these are not literal, you know, how come my other neighbor is angry drinking piss all the time? Same age. Why? What happened? You know? And you'd find out that both of them have been through traumatic things and both of them have been through exceptionally great things in their life, but how they process them and how they then use that to pivot forward or to pivot backward was a decision somewhere along the lines. Yep. You know? I feel like, you know, an underlying question that I've always wanted to ask you is my why from the start of this iteration of business in the past 5 years was to build a business from home to stay at home. Yep. I just want to make enough money that we can comfortably make any decision we need to make, and we're there with each other and one day with our children. And we're 12 months down the track of trying for children. We've just done our first IVF cycle. We're all fingers crossed and waiting, right? Yep. And the idea moving forward now is like, weirdly enough, we've just got to a point financially where we could probably make it work, you know, like comfortably. You know, we can have whatever cars we want, nothing too crazy, but we can afford where we live, we can afford our lifestyle. We've lived beneath our means for long enough to understand what that actually is. So now that we're adding another expense to it, a child or children, we can maintain that. And then we live happily ever after. And I'm sure you had much of the same goals there, not from home, but to establish a business where you could create a lifestyle for you and your family, have children, and live happily ever after. Mm-hmm. And then you don't live happily ever after. What's that experience?
It's pretty difficult. It's obviously something you never expect. So, Toby was a perfectly healthy kid, right up until the day he was diagnosed. You know, when he was diagnosed, he had a cough. So he had a chesty cough that wouldn't go away. But other than that, he had no symptoms, so we knew it wasn't a cold or something like that, and it got worse. We took him into hospital one night because the coughing was really bad, and I actually thought he'd stop breathing while we'd put him to bed, got him up because he was quite distressed and it looked like he'd stopped breathing. So chucked him in the car, took him to hospital. A few hours in there, I said, look, I want you to scan his chest because I feel like he's got something stuck in his throat. That was kind of what it sounded like.
Okay.
And, they did the scan, and then it wasn't until they kind of admitted us into hospital and didn't really tell us anything until the doctors came in the next day and they said, look, he's got a 6 by 8 centimetre tumour in his chest. So essentially he had a tumour that was growing off his thymus, which is a gland in your neck, which you have as a child, but as a teenager it sort of shrivels up and doesn't do anything.
Yep.
And it was sitting on top of his heart. So when it was growing so rapidly that it was starting to essentially compress his airway, and that's why he was coughing.
Wow, and that's what you're hearing, that
was that sort of croaky breathing, sort of coughing. He was, because his airway was being impeded. So he got flown to Perth and had put into ICU, essentially told he's going to get worse before he gets better, and had a very risky surgery while he had a impeded airway to try and so they could do a biopsy to find out what it was. Yep. And then we got a cancer diagnosis for him. So he was diagnosed with T-cell lymphoblastic lymphoma, which any cancer diagnosis is terrible for a child, obviously, but the survival rate for that particular cancer was quite good. It was in the 85-90% range, and
Wow.
a lot of kids that get into essentially if the treatment starts working, they get into remission. Then all in all, the survival rate's almost 100%. So that turned his life, it turned our life upside down. We had to move to Perth. He was, as part of their treatment, essentially has 12 months of intensive chemo. So, and you're required to be within essentially an hour of the hospital for the period of that time.
Yep.
So moved to Perth. We set up, we did a couple of months at Ronald McDonald House, and then set up a house in Subiaco, and trying to balance running the business. I'd say amazing team. That all jumped in behind and stepped up and were amazing. But there was just that constant balance of my family needs me and I need to be there for them and be there for Toby and Tanya and Logan. But also, there was at the time 80 odd people that we were responsible for their income and their lives, and that was COVID at the same time, and business was really tough. It's probably the hardest point of the business we've ever had as well, from purely from a operational point of view, a cash flow point of view. Everything was quite tough at that period of time. So for Glenn and Colin and Julie and our senior team in Perth, like they took that on their shoulders and tried to take as much off me as they could.
Yep.
But it was a really, really difficult time, and for Toby and for the family as well. Without going into a lot of detail, it was we got through the 12 months of treatment. Chemo on children is absolutely brutal. It's not something that I like seeing any family having to go through, as anyone would, but having seen it firsthand with Toby and with all the other families that are on the ward and you're going through it with them, it can be heartbreaking, and it can be inspirational, and it can be sad, and it can be incredibly joyful, all in one day.
Yeah,
like it's a roller coaster of emotion in that place, and we just had to manage our way through it. Tobes got into remission, and we moved home about 12 months later, late 2020, and then I think we got about 8 weeks at home and he relapsed. So from when he relapsed, we only got about 4 months with him. He passed away in April 2021. So really, there's not really any way I can describe it.
Of course not. It's horrific. It's
pretty fucked. So, there's a lot that we learned through that process, and learned about ourselves, I learned a lot about resilience, particularly from Toby, but from the kids that were on that ward. And it's a conversation I have quite a lot with people about resilience. And a lot of people say, kids are not resilient these days. They're the whole everyone gets an award, and then they're losing resilience. Whereas I like to say, well, that's about perspective. Not everyone wins in life. That's a perspective thing. But if you put a child under true duress, if you put a child into that circumstance that Toby went through, you'll see resilience like you'll never see in an adult. So, Toby could be under an incredibly distressing treatment in a morning, having a lumbar puncture where they're putting chemo into your spinal cord, waking up from an anaesthetic, and then 20 minutes, half hour later, once he's recovered, he's what can we be doing? What can I be doing that's going to make me happy? And he's riding around the ward on a bike, or he's playing a musical instrument, or he's doing something.
Wow.
Full well knowing that tomorrow something similar is going to happen to me. Yeah. But as adults, we would see that afternoon, we would spend the afternoon dwelling on the fact that
wallowing.
That was fucked, and now it's going to happen to me again tomorrow. Whereas children, as soon as they can see past that initial piece of trauma, they're automatically looking for, how can I be happy?
Yeah,
how can I spend this bit of time being joyful? Yeah. And as adults, we lose that. We tend to dwell on what's just happened to me, or what's going to happen, what could happen to me, or it might even be something that might never happen. But you can get caught thinking about that, and it's detracting from today.
Yeah,
it's detracting from the here and now. And it's something that I'll never forget from that process, and something I learned saying, we all deal with shit, and shit happens. But it's how long you let it affect you for, which is, I guess, how long you let it own you for, is what's important.
Is that a decision, or is that a process, do you think, that time period?
For an adult or for a child?
For you as an adult watching that with your child.
Well, for me, in terms of how I use that now, anytime I'm facing something difficult, it probably just reiterates that I've got to look at this and go, is this genuinely an issue I need to be allowing it to dwell in my time, or is this something I can look past and something I can do about it, or there's going to be a problem in 3 days' time that I've got to deal with, but I don't have to let that bother me now. I can still go and spend time with my family and enjoy myself and give them time and give them all of me rather than half of me, because I'm still dwelling on whatever else is going in the background. There's a lot ways that I guess you can implement that view, but from a kid's point of view, it's just incredible how resilient they are when faced with that really true duress, true trauma, and it is traumatic. And to see the way that they deal with it, it's just unbelievable. So,
I think it's obviously I can only imagine, being 33-year-old, not a parent yet, I have no idea, but that idea that they haven't been through enough, or they haven't had enough life to feel like they have time to waste.
Yep.
I feel like when I was a kid, I was always running out of time.
Yep.
You want to stay at the playground for just a minute longer because I might, I don't know when I'm coming back.
Yep.
Whereas as an adult, you sort of put things on ice because you're like, well,
I can come back to that.
We got Monday, don't worry about Friday. And I feel like in business, I squeeze the juice of everything. I'm fully anticipating to never have you back on the podcast, so I'm just trying to get all the questions I can possibly think of out, and it's the same across the board. And I think that, resilience is the only word. Resilience and almost like an appreciation of the thing in front of you rather than the perceived thing that could be in front of you.
And I think probably the challenge that I have now is, and I've had to get better at it because, we've talked about all the things that you go through in life that guide you and change your perception and change your view. I've gone through certain things that have changed my view to the point that it is now, but not everyone's done that.
Yeah.
So, for me, something that is a big drama or a big issue, or it would need to be a massive, massive issue. Whereas for other people, they might have something that they're dealing with which is a big issue for them. But I look at that in the context of losing a child and might go, really, what are you worried about? That's nothing compared to what you should be worried about. But that's not fair. To that person, that's a big thing. And you need to be able to see for them that is a big issue. So and looking at it from that perspective, because it's very easy to get frustrated and just go, that's nothing. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. But if that's a big issue for them, then they still need to be able to process that and deal with that. So again, in business, where you're dealing with issues all the time, that are they actually issues where people are ringing you going, this is a problem and I need this and I need that, and you're like, mate, you don't need to worry about that.
Yeah.
But for them, me saying that could be the worst possible thing I could possibly say. So you really got to try and put things in other people's light and the way that they're seeing it rather than the way that I see it.
Do you find you have a new skill set of being able to maybe negotiate the severity of something that they're perceiving is really bad? Maybe you're able to go, oh no, I get that. And maybe if we do this, that, the other, it doesn't look so bad. Do you think that's a...
Yeah, I think so. And it depends on the type of person you're talking to.
Yeah, of course.
That's a big part of it. The building industry's got every type of possible personality involved, and all people act differently under pressure, and there's always a lot of pressure in the building industry. Programs everything, costs is everything, safety is everything. And so when people there's pressure in building projects, particularly big building projects that we're involved in, and some people handle that pressure well, and it can be calm and collected and see issues as they are, whereas other people can become very, very challenging to deal with because they respond poorly to pressure, and the way that they deal with it can be extremely challenging. And I've had to learn for myself as well. Like if I'm not feeling good, if I'm struggling with my grief at a particular time, my tolerance for bullshit can be very, very short. So, sometimes withdrawing myself from certain situations, withdrawing myself from certain aspects of the business through those times becomes really important because I might unload on the wrong person who's not deserving of it, but it's just because my skin's really, really, really thin at that point in time. So I've had to get really good at knowing when those times are as well.
Yeah, sort of like feeling or knowing the triggers and going like, I'm going to step out, do my thing, or going like, actually, this is a good day, I'm going to deal with this face on.
But and like you say, as men, sometimes we have to be seen as, we're fine all the time. But yeah, there's definitely been circumstances where I've had to just say to my team, hey, I'm not capable of, I'm not all there at the moment. I'm not on my game.
Yep.
I need to step back for a couple of days and get my head right, and communicate that to them, let them know. Whereas rather than trying to bottle it up and just keep saying I'm fine and then make poor decisions or do the wrong thing, that's really important. So, and having those people that are receptive to that and supportive of that as well is extremely valuable to me.
Yeah, it's as valuable as you being able to have that moment of recognition and communication.
Absolutely.
Is it being received and acted on appropriately.
Yeah.
It feels like from the way you talk about the experience that obviously it's a negative situation, that you've taken a positive, you've taken what you can positively from it, and you then reflect that into your life, into your business, into the foundation.
Yep.
Was there a fork in the road somewhere where you thought, this can be my demise or this can be the thing that I then build off? Did you have that fork in the road, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. When we started planning the charity prior to Toby relapsing. So when Toby was in remission and we moved home, I approached a few of the directors who are now directors of the charity saying, I want to start a charity. I want it to be 100% distribution. The purposes for the charity, I'd already, through all of our investigations while Toby was under treatment, it was something that we wanted to do. It got put on hold when Toby relapsed, and then ultimately when Toby passed away, it's not like I was just skipping straight back into work. There was quite some time where I just wasn't in that headspace to be able to do that, and managing grief and supporting my family, not sleeping particularly well. So you start drinking a bit more, and you start maybe making a few poor decisions. But I had some wise people around me who sort of guided me and said, hey, I think you need to put your energy into this, or how about you pick this back up and do that, and really got me back on track. So I was lucky that I had those people that were willing to have those conversations with me and point me in the right direction. And we picked the charity back up, and I went back to a group of board members or potential board members that I'd approached previously, and they all put their hand up and said, "Yeah, let's do it." So,
it feels like everything's sort of like guiding you to that decision at that point. I'm guessing if everyone was like, "Yeah, fucking oath, let's go," you're like, "This must be the next step for me."
Yeah, and I think I get a certain amount of of comfort in the way that I process what we've had to deal with through being able to talk about Toby and obviously being part of the charity and doing something positive in his name is great. But we also wanted to make sure that the charity wasn't just about the Meachams. Like it's been started and it's got Toby's name, but there's 1,000 families a year in Australia who have a cancer diagnosis for a child. That's a lot of families, and we lose 100 kids a year to childhood cancer. It's still the biggest disease-related killer of kids in Australia. So, the research funding, particularly in Western Australia, is very poor. We've had some great funding in recent years from Parent Institute, who've made a massive commitment, about $150 million over the next 15 years.
Wow!
But our government don't contribute enough to research in any way. They rely on these big philanthropy organisations to provide that funding, which is pretty frustrating. But just the process that researchers have to go through to get grant funding and to fund critical research to improve outcomes for kids with cancer, and they're like battling to fund it. It just didn't make any sense to us. And obviously, also there was a lot of skepticism in people about charities and how much money goes to the cause, and how much money charities have got CEOs and bonus structures and all these different sorts of sorts of structures. And don't get me wrong, there are some amazing charities out there that do amazing work in our community, and but there's also some that have caused that skepticism in the market. So we really wanted to create a charity which was 100% distribution. So no questions asked. Our policy is 100% distribution. So every single dollar we receive in a donation
goes to where it's meant to go.
That dollar that comes into our bank account from a donation goes. It will be distributed to either childhood cancer research or trauma mitigation programs in WA. So again, all the money stays in WA as well. So,
oh wow, okay. Trauma mitigation. Explain that to me, sorry.
So trauma mitigation programs are things that while kids are under treatment, as I was saying, like it's extremely traumatic. Say while they're actually physically having a treatment, when kids are on ward, they will have some sort of chemo infusion, or they'll have an injection like a needle, or they'll have so they might be put under for a lumbar puncture or something like that. Almost every day while they're in hospital, they're having some form of traumatic treatment. And over time, as that builds up, we were talking about how they're resilient to be able to bounce back from that, which is really good. But the trauma that they're facing every single day for a very long period of time can have pretty distinctive impacts on them as they go into their teenage years and as they get older. That's not something that we really have a good understanding of the impact that trauma has as they grow up.
Yeah.
So trauma mitigation. So we currently fund a full-time occupational therapist on the ward to do play therapy with children. And we also fund a music therapist to do music therapy with the kids.
Oh, okay.
So play therapy, a lot of people think, playing with kids, it's good therapy, but these OTs are incredible people. So they'll actually go and they'll do strategic play with a child. So they'll have toys that have got NGTs, or they'll have pegs and essentially have injections so that the toys look like what they're having to deal with.
It's relatable and normalising, yeah.
And the play therapist will go in with go to a child before they're going to have a treatment, and strategic play with that child similar to what the treatment is they're going to have.
Wow.
So it sort of temperaments them to know what's going to happen. And then quite often the play therapists would go with the child into the treatment room and then bring them back to their room to get them back into a mindset where they're willing to get on with their day. So you're trying to limit the time where they're under this duress. So it's not just playing with Lego and doing those sorts of things. It's highly strategic to try and mitigate trauma. And the music therapy is the same. Like the impact that the music therapy can have, if a child's feeling flat or low, a music therapist will strategically play certain types of music to bring up their mood. Or if a child's feeling very stressed and is really on edge, they might do certain types of music with them. It might calm them down and make them a bit more less take that stress away. So it's not just go in and play an instrument. Everything they do is strategic. It's structured to try and mitigate trauma for that child and get them into a headspace where they can return to those happy times where we were talking about before. Yeah. So used to be funded by the government, but around the time when they transitioned from RMH to PCH, the government defunded play therapy and said that that's no longer something they're going to fund. So now all play therapy at PCH on the oncology ward is only funded through philanthropy. So these are the sorts of things where they rely on charities to jump in and cover the shortfall of what the government's willing to fund. Yeah,
and I guess in that situation, you're appreciating how essential that trauma mitigation is in that situation.
Yeah. And seeing firsthand what it does and the impact it has on a child. Why it's not funded, I have no understanding. I don't understand why it wouldn't be funded. But what we can do is make sure that it's there. So, and we're only able to do that through obviously the amazing people that support the charity and contribute to what we do.
So the charity itself, what's the structure there? You're obviously like a charity body that has businesses and private people that will then donate to the charity. The charity then through either, you just gave me the words trauma mitigation and actual research. So is that what's going on? Is it business and personal entities donating to then go? Is that how it works?
Yeah. So we have a board which is quite diverse. So we've got lots of different skill sets on our board. So Terry Pantlin, who's one of your past podcasters. So Terry's on the board. Scott Robinson from Jack in the Box, he sits on the board. We've got Cam Borhill, who's out of Perth. He's a lawyer. Anthony Gallagher, another local business owner, MGIB, on the board, as well as Timmy Wakeling, who's a parent of a child who's Riley Wakeling, who had same diagnosis as Toby, sits on the board as well, myself and Tanya, and then Trudy Cook, who used to be the GM at Crown Towers. She's now runs Karrinyup Shopping Centre.
Wow.
So that's essentially our board, and Colin Bell, who's one of our shareholders of our companies.
Yep.
So we've got a very diverse board with a diverse skill set, and they all bring those skills and their businesses capabilities. So Terry runs all the accounting for the charity,
of course,
at no cost. Scott does all of the branding and marketing for the charity at no cost. Like set all the website up, does all of our branding, does all of the essentially the website creation, and all of those platforms are all done by him at no cost. So because we have that structure of diversity, that allows us to operate essentially with no overheads, and we can have our 100% distribution policy.
Wow.
But so obviously we're not able to be successful unless the community supports us. So we've had some great community support. We've got individuals that make donations. We've got people who do, marathon challenges or bike riding challenges, or we've recently had Katie Ryan's son Jake, who through his school holidays, he swims laps of the pool every single day, raising money for the charity.
Wow.
And finished it off with a lap. He did the Busselton swim on the weekend.
Oh,
so
just
capped that off. So I think he raised $4,000 or $5,000.
Epic.
So everything from community making one-off donations to doing fundraising challenges like that. We have employee giving programs set up with corporates. So essentially companies set up structures where employees can give $2, $3, $5 pre-tax out of their pay, and then the companies match the contributions that the employees make.
Wow.
And then those funds are donated to the charity. And then right through to we have our community partnership with the West Coast Eagles, which was instigated a couple of years ago. They've been great supporters of what we're doing and what we're doing in the community. And right through, so we had the Southwest Junior Football League had a dedicated round last year. 3,500 kids played in that round. They all had, we had Toby merch everywhere, and all the coaches wearing Toby vests, and all the branding painted on the hands oval, and over $20,000 raised for that weekend.
Wow!
So everything from that to events. So like golf, we've got a corporate golf day coming up at the end of Feb, and over the last 3 years, that golf day alone's raised over $450,000.
Wow!
We should do 150, 160,000 from this event this year. So,
and is that from people making contributions? Is that how that works?
So we run a golf day. We have corporates who sponsor the day.
Yep.
Who we've had, some of the sponsors have sponsored it from the first event. This is the fourth one.
And they just stay on board.
They just stay on board. And then the groups, so different companies come. It's $3,000 a group to play.
Yep.
And they come and play, and then they make donations on the day, and they contribute. So a lot of it comes from sponsorship and registration.
Yep.
And then we have auction items, and we have a few opportunities for teams to bribe to better their score. So the more money you donate, the better your score might get.
Unreal.
Those sorts of things. So it's not so much about who wins. It's about raising money for a cause, and it's become a very popular day. Like I think it's sold out within 10 or 12 days this year from when we launched the ticketing. So,
unreal. I actually think I'm doing the merch for 2 teams that have entered. I'm putting it all together at the moment. I'm like at the end, I'm pretty sure this is what that's all for.
Yeah. No, and so look, everything from community to corporate to events.
Yeah.
We've sort of got lots of different things going on, but the thing that's probably been the most, again, it's very humbling to be in a position where the community have got behind this in such a big way. Like it's almost leaves me speechless. The amount of people and the amount of support that the charity's got in such a short period of time is just amazing. And certainly, I think we've distributed about $500,000 out of the charity so far, and we'll probably over the next 6 months there'll be another $500,000 that'll go out of the charity again. Where obviously we get to go and contribute to those research programs to provide that funding. And it might be seen that the charity's doing that, but it's not. It's all these people that have supported the charity to be able to generate those funds that has enabled us to do that. And it's almost how do you thank people for that? Like saying thank you just doesn't seem to be enough. So we're very, very grateful for the support we get, and hopefully we can continue to build on it. And the 100% distribution thing, I think that's the thing that that resonates, and
the core of it would be that this is actually a charity doing charity stuff.
There's no one making money out of what we do. So and it's incredibly incredibly giving. Like it gives back to you, to me, to know that we're able to do these things for other people, and support other families that are going through what we had to go through. So.
And do you have any instances where you can see that in like playing out in real life? Like, are you still visiting the ward, seeing these kids going through it and seeing these like OTs and whatnot?
Yeah, look, I go to the hospital quite regularly. Again, some people that have gone through gone through it would never go to the hospital ever again. Don't want to go anywhere near it, but I'm there quite regularly, and the doctors and the consultants that looked after Toby, we're still in contact with. Some of them run research teams as well as consulting oncologists, and to be honest, there's a couple of those who are the reason we wanted to start the charity. They're just these incredible people that by day they are consultant oncologists, and by night they somehow run a team of researchers that are trying to better the outcomes for kids with cancer.
Wow.
Incredibly selfless people that don't get a lot of publicity, don't get a lot of recognition for what they do, and are outstanding members of our community, doing things that are really, really difficult, and then they struggle to get funding to do it. So that's one of the things we're trying. Doing it
for the love of humanity and not getting the backing is crazy.
Yeah. So researchers, the researchers that we spoke to, they will win 1 in 10 grants that they apply for, and grants can range from anything from $30,000 or $40,000 through to a few $100,000, and if they're lucky, every now and then $1 million.
Yep.
And most of these research programs that are run in WA need at least $1 million a year to function.
Okay.
So when you're 1 in 10 strike rate, on average they're putting grant applications in every month.
Yep.
Those grant applications are not simple; they're comprehensive applications. Again, so they've got to do all the grant applications to try and get the funding to run their research programs.
Yep.
At the same time, they're treating oncologists, and they might have a team of 6 or 8 or 10 researchers who are relying on their income and relying on those grants being achieved so they can continue their research.
Yeah.
So the whole structure to me doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's a little backwards.
Yeah.
It's almost like if there was like a success rate of actually getting the grants, you could almost say, well, and I'm speaking completely theoretically, but like we have an arm of Toby Foundation that does the grant application process so they can just do what they do best. It's like, let's get someone who's really good, like a writer who writes you up for 40 under 40 and you get the thing. It's like, let's get someone who just does grant writing, and that's now your job. You do that, get us money.
Yep.
Because I do know like it's a ridiculous parallel, but for the sake of the conversation, like business grants you can get. Now, I'm in the situation where if I got a business grant, great, I could probably spend the same amount of time doing the application and just make that money.
Yes.
You know? And it's like when you cross it over into a medical application where the money actually does something a lot more significant than help me print T-shirts, it's like, oh, maybe we don't need you writing grant applications. We need you to continue to research.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. The whole premise of why we started the charity was, one, we were frustrated with charities that weren't distributing as much as what they probably should because of their wages and the income and the rent and whatever else they're paying. So we wanted it to be 100% distribution, but we also wanted to streamline the process of how that money got to those that needed it. So
right.
Obviously we're a charity. We've got governance and compliance requirements that we have to comply with from Australian Charities Not-for-Profits Commission, with ATO, with state legislation. So we can't just be handing money out willy-nilly.
Yep.
But we can try to streamline those processes and put, again, the fact that we focus on distribution within WA means that it gives, none of the money's leaving WA to go to East Coast researchers. We're able to focus on West Australian research.
Yep.
And everyone that's donating knows that it's going to something tangible here in our community, not sort of being sent overseas or to different research programs.
Right.
So that streamlining of the process was really important for us. And that's, again, those are the two key reasons that we started a charity.
Of course. And when you're in that situation and you're needing that money, you're watching your child go through that and you're like, well, how do I get the person who's helping my child to be here longer? They're like, well, there's no money for that.
Yeah,
I can only imagine that would be just a slow, on top of the heartbreak that you've got, just a slow heartbreak compounding.
Yeah. And like I say, the doctors and the nurses that work and the OTs that work on that ward, it takes a truly special type of person. There are a lot of, and this is not a criticism of other nurses and doctors who might not be able to or have the capacity to work on that ward, but that is an extremely challenging place to work. Yeah, they're confronted with, all those highs and lows that I talked about before.
Yeah.
They're confronted with every single day. They go to work and that's what they deal with. And doing that for long periods of time for a nurse's salary or a government income, it takes a truly special person to be on that ward, working in that space day in, day out. And the recognition, again, for those people, probably they just silently go away about their job and go home and live their life, but they are absolutely amazing people that really need to be held up in our community.
Surely as well, like you'd have to think if you're in that scenario, and you can probably tell me, they're carrying the emotion as well.
Absolutely.
Like they don't want anyone to pass away. They don't want anyone to even be there to begin with, I'm sure. And now they're rocking up, doing their job, and on top of that, adding this like layer of emotional like support for the children, for the parents, for the family.
Yeah, I think Nick Gottardo, who's the head of oncology at the PCH, probably said it the best, where he says, to cure a child of cancer, we need to take them to the brink of death and bring them back again. So the chemo drugs literally break a child down to nothing, and then they have to try and build them back up again. So, but for a lot of blood-based cancers and others, they have to literally take the child to that point where they're on the brink of death for a period of time and then bring them back again. So they're literally destroying their immune system. They're putting their bodies through extreme trauma to try and save them. And they're dealing with that day in, day out. So they also are having to live with the fact that we're giving these childs these toxic treatments that are definitely having negative impacts on their life significantly, in the hope that they can survive and the hope that they can cure them. And those are the kids that have got opportunities to survive. We still have many cancers, in particular brain cancers, that don't get given that chance. There are families that go in and are given a brain cancer diagnosis and told there's no treatment.
Go home.
There's nothing we can do for you. And we've seen that in our community in Bunbury multiple times with kids over the last few years where they've had a diagnosis and they're literally told, look, we can give you some radiation or we can give you some treatment to slow it down, but you've got 3 to 6 months, and the medical system can't help you.
Yeah. What do you do with that news?
So you've either got that, or you've got, yes, we can treat it, but this is how we treat it. So although our survival rates in childhood cancer have significantly improved over the last 25, 30 years, they've continued to get better. They're all based off chemo. They're all based off chemotherapy technology, essentially. And we need to keep funding research, because that is not it's not a treatment which we can just continue doing.
Yeah, that we need to happily rely on.
We need to find better ways. We need to find better treatments, and a lot of the work that's being done in immunotherapy, a lot of the work that's being done in that space to find less toxic treatments than chemo. There's a lot of work being done in genetics. So essentially, they're doing genetic testing of cancers at diagnosis, so that they can then try and look at particular markers of that child's or that individual's cancer to identify drugs which might be better suited to them.
Oh, wow.
Rather than, if you have this diagnosis, you get this treatment, which is essentially how it works now. And if you get that treatment, you've got X percentage of survival. That's how it works all over the world. So now they're starting to build databases of information about genetics. So if you've got certain genetic markers, then certain drugs you might be more responsive to, which might be less toxic than chemo. So as we go down the pathway, we can move away from these highly toxic treatments, but it's only going to come with research.
Yeah.
And if we don't fund the research, we're not going to get there.
Yeah.
So that's the priority at the moment, is for those that are survivors, or those that can have the opportunity of treatment, we need to make the treatment less toxic and less harmful. And for those that are not getting opportunities to even have a treatment, we need to be finding treatments. We need to be finding opportunities of how we break those barriers to make sure that kids that are getting no chance have a chance. Because that's still happening. And it shouldn't be. So
has there been, you said we've come a long way in the past 20, 25 years, since Toby's passing, have you seen an improvement in the treatments at all, or in the technology?
Yeah, look, we're seeing it, particularly in this genetics side of things. We're seeing it continue to improve. So when Toby relapsed, he got put into a high risk category, and that qualified him for a trial which was called the Zero program. So the Zero program essentially meant that Toby then had genetic testing done of his cancer. So they still had biopsies of his original tumour. They were sent away to have genomic testing done, and they came back with 2 or 3 immunotherapy drugs, which they said, look, these drugs can be added into his protocol, as they think that they relate best to his markers. So children who were classed at that time as very high risk got put onto that trial.
Right.
Since then, that trial has moved forward to now every single child who's diagnosed gets genomic testing done at the start.
Wow.
So that has now rolled out to be across the country, that testing gets done. So the only way that you can build enough information to be able to confidently make changes in the treatment protocols is through more and more and more data.
Data collection.
Data-driven.
Yeah.
And it comes back to, I think the best way I've described it to someone is saying, well, if your child has cancer and I come to you and say, you can have this protocol of cancer treatment over the next, or of chemo treatment over the next 12 months, and your child has a 90% chance of survival, but it's going to be brutal, and they have risk of secondary cancers later in life from the toxicity of the treatment, and they have all these other, they could never be able to have kids, and they can, all of the other side effects that come with it. Or we've got this new immunotherapy treatment, which we think is a 90% survival rate, but we don't have decades of data to support that.
Yep.
But you're also not going to have as many side effects, and you don't have those problems. Which one do you choose?
Man, look, there's a logical decision and an emotional decision, right?
Yeah.
They might be the same, actually. Now, if you're asked that question, which one do you choose, do you think?
I think as a parent, I would always go with the one where I had more surety that my child was going to survive. So the one that has the most tested data to know that they're going to be alive. Like I could deal with Toby not being able to have kids. I could deal with potential of a secondary cancer down the track. That's something we can deal with then. Right now, I want my child to be alive. I want my child to survive this. So families are generally going to make that decision of, I'll go with what I know.
Yeah.
The reality is they wouldn't even be given that option at the moment, because the doctors wouldn't even put the immunotherapy options forward because there's not enough data.
Yeah.
We need to continue building that data, building the information so that they can then more confidently, through trial testing, and again, this is happening all over the world, and all that data is compiled all over the world in a number of countries that all work together to improve the treatment for a particular diagnosis. So the more research that can be happening, the more data we can get, that's going to improve. But it's everything down. Like in Perth, they're running treatment on like leukemia lymphoma. So we've provided a $220,000 grant last year to the leukemia lymphoma translation research team at PCH.
Yep.
And they've had some breakthroughs around assessing the environment which enables leukemia cells to develop, and how they can try to, instead of treating the cancer, they can treat the environment in which the cancer
So the cancer can't grow as comfortably as it would otherwise. Yeah. Wow.
So there's lots of incredibly smart people that want to solve this problem.
Yeah.
The best thing we can do is get the fuck out of their way and let them do it.
Yeah.
Like, give them the funding, allow them to get on with their research, allow them to do it unimpeded, and we will continue to move forward. But if we don't have that funding, if we don't contribute the money to allow them to do their job, allow them to be these amazing people within our community who are just working away in the background, making massive differences in these kids' lives, I don't know what we're doing as a community if we're not doing that. So that's probably what frustrates me the most. But it frustrates me, but then the fact that we've been able to make such a massive impact with the charity and be able to now make a real impact in how these researchers, we can now start funneling money to them to do their job, it will make a difference.
Yeah. So obviously, if we look at the chain, we've got a problem that's not enough funding. Above that, we've got the charity that you've created. So now there's a pathway for money to get to them. Yep. In a perfect world scenario, how and where would money pour into that charity to help them the best? What is there like a scenario that you can imagine? They go, oh, it'd be great if this business had this, or if you want to say the government gets involved, but
I think the government getting involved it's going to be a cyclical thing. Like, some governments will see this as a priority and they'll provide more money. Some governments won't see it as a priority. They'll drop the funding off. It's going to go up and down. And I think at the moment, where our government's at and the amount of money they've got in surplus, they could be putting a lot more into this than what they are.
Yeah.
We won't talk about politics because we'll get ourselves into trouble.
And it'll go forever.
I think the priorities for us over the forthcoming period is to start building on our corporate partnerships. So the community are doing a great job, and community are getting behind what we're doing. They're doing amazing. But the area where we can start to implement corporate partnerships, like I know you've had James from MGM on the show, on the podcast. So we announced a corporate partnership with MGM late last year, which we'll be starting to roll out this year. So they implementing a bit of an employee giving program, and their staff are able to make pre-tax contributions, and then MGM will match it up to a certain value. And over a 12-month period, that could generate $40,000 from one employee giving program. So as you start to roll out those programs, and it might only be $2 or $3 pre-tax out of the team members' pay, so it's not really that much. But when you've got 100 staff or 200 staff or 300 staff, that adds up to a lot of money over a 12-month period. So if we've got 10, 15, 20 corporate partnerships rolling in the community, in the West Australian corporate community, then that what it does is it continues to build that base of income, which is not cyclical. So events come and go. We run an event, a golf event as an example. We run that event, it generates the money, and then we won't do that again for 12 months because you can't do that every second week. But corporate corporate programs allow us to just get that trickle of money that just comes in every month. And it allows us to make more confident decisions about what our commitments are as a charity for future funding arrangements. And that, whereas like charities can't spend money they don't have. So we can't make commitments off money we don't have. So we can't make a commitment saying we will give you this for the next 3 years, but we don't actually have surety of what we're going to get in the bank for the next 3 years. So we can only make decisions about distribution off of the funds that we already have. So, you know, having those programs in place allows us to have a bit more of a vision of where our financial positions will be and what future commitments we're able to make. So corporate programs are really our priority at the moment. But
they make the most amount of sense for longevity because you do have that consistency of like, we know that we've got 10 corporations that have X amount of staff members each, and out of those, this amount of, I understand. And then sort of your events and your more momentary contribution events are sort of like the cream. Yeah.
I don't think you can lose sight on the person that donates $10. Like,
of course.
It's, we're at the moment, I think I'm hopeful that this financial year will turn over $1 million, or we'll bring in $1 million to the charity. We're on track for that at the moment. Which is our goal for this year. So I think we're nearly there. We did $1 million in our first 2 years, and then this year we'll do $1 million in a year. And then we've got to continue growing from there. A lot of people, when we start talking about big numbers, are like, I can't make a big contribution, or I can't do that. And I'm like, whether it's $5 from a kid washing a car and making that donation to the charity, or it's a big corporate donating $100,000, it doesn't matter. Like it's coming from a place where someone wants to help, and what we want to make sure is that we've got the transparency and we've got the authenticity to know that whether it's a $5 donation or a $100,000 donation, they know where it's going to go. And that's the most important thing for us, and for them knowing that $5 is going to be treated exactly the same as everything else. It's equally as important as to the pocket it ends up with, which is hopefully in research and in our mitigation programs. So, that's probably the thing that it's hardest to articulate to people. It's like, it doesn't matter how much the donation is. Like it's all coming from a position of giving, and there's nothing more rewarding than being able to give back to your community. So it's a feel good thing.
Is there a physical premises for the Toby Foundation at all?
No, not really. We have our main office. We call is our office for CPD office in Bunbury there, in the bottom of the old Lyric building. We've got the Toby logos on the door. We run all the finances run from there, and we've got some storage for the apparel and so on out at Treendale. But it's a bit of a placeless charity, which obviously allows us to have no rent and no overheads. So it's certainly it is where it needs to be.
Yeah, beautiful. And if someone's listening right now, the easiest way they can contribute or make it be part of the difference is by going to the website, I'm guessing? Yep.
Anyone can make donations on the website. They can set up fundraising programs. They can set up if you want to run a marathon or you want to do a fundraising, do 100 sit-ups or 1,000 push-ups or whatever it is. Anyone can set up their own essentially fundraising campaign through the website. They can make donations, and then obviously any corporates that want to get involved with giving programs or corporate partnerships, then that just contact through the website or to me essentially.
Beautiful. Now the question that sort of started all this, I want to go back to it. You may have already covered it, so if you feel like you've answered it, just please tell me. Part of being an entrepreneur is being unrealistically optimistic, I think. It's like betting on your future earning potential, not what you've got in your bank account right now, and just playing as if you're going to win. Like I'm on the start line, I'm going to win. That's who I am. Right now, like I sort of broke it down before, started the business, grew it, got into a house where we could have a family. Now I've got enough cash flow. We're like, cool, if she gets pregnant, all good, sweet. We're going to have a baby, babies, twins, boys, hopefully. Everyone's going to be healthy. We're all going to live happily ever after. That's the plan. That's not even the plan. That's what's going to happen. Living in the wake of what you've been through and knowing that happily ever after isn't promised, what's your day-to-day feel like? Because it has to be different. It has to be different since before this happened, obviously, right? How do you maintain that positivity and that hope and that faith moving forward that everything's going to be good?
You don't every day. You try to, and you try to. I think for me right now, it's being being more present with Logan and spending more time with him. He probably sometimes wishes I wasn't. So, coaching his cricket team and assistant coach with his footy and, trying to build my skills as a coach and trying to be a bit of a mentor for other kids in the team. I think that's become really important to me. Being a good role model is probably what my focus has been. I think Logan sometimes sees it that his dad's buddy telling him what to do all the time because he's his coach, and
of course
he's the son of the coach, so that comes with a certain stigma. But so maybe sometimes it's not what he thinks is best, but being there and being able to be there for him, be able to give him he's probably he's the forgotten one in this whole circumstance. Like, I wouldn't say he's forgotten, but he's had to go through a lot as an 8 or 9 year old losing his brother. He's old enough to know what he was dealing with and what's happened. But really, as he matures, he's going to have some tough times, and making sure that I'm sort of setting up for him, showing him that it's okay to be emotional. It's okay. Get emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. Like that's part of life. And to talk about it and not try and bottle it up. So he's one of those kids that if he's not feeling good, he tries to hide it from me and Tanya because he wants to be strong. He doesn't want to upset us. So trying to be there for him is probably where my priorities are.
Yeah.
But in saying that, we've got a business to run and we've got a lot of people to look after in our organisation, and that's important to us as well. But I'm probably more comfortable with the fact that we've got an amazing management team. We've got a really good structure. We've grown to a scale that allows the business to operate. If I'm having a shit day and I need to check out for a day or two,
it's a possibility.
The world doesn't end. The business keeps going and the business keeps doing what it's doing. We've got an amazing team through the whole from our trade base and our apprentices right through to our senior management. We're very, very lucky with the group of people we've been able to pull together.
Yeah.
But that allows me to do that. That allows me to stop work, knock off work at 3 o'clock on training days and go and run cricket training and to do those things. So that's important. And being there for my family.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question right, but my priorities very much now are family and being able to make sure that I'm making the right decisions for them and being there for Tanya and Logan when they need me. Certainly, I'm not the perfect husband or the perfect dad. We've always got ways to improve and do better, and that's my priority at the moment is being as good at that as I can be.
Unreal. Well, I commend you and applaud you for being so open and honest and transparent, because I feel like a lot of people in the same situation, I think majority of men would shy away from it because obviously it is heartbreaking, and as much as you don't want other people to go through it, the connection between you sharing your story and helping them through that thing if they have to go through it, sometimes it's not obvious that by sharing it actually puts so much into the community, and before you put money into the charity and do all these obviously great things, I think talking about stuff is such a big deal. And especially like, I might be wrong here. I'm being as transparent as I can with the IVF process, and sort of being this tall, loud, tattooed figure in public who's business motivational type shit. When it does go into this area of I never imagined I'd be injecting my missus with hormones and dealing with that and realizing that I have a fertility issue and all these things. But by being someone like you're big, tattooed, strong, and also very vulnerable and emotional and happy to share that.
Yeah.
That's crazy to be even to come on here and to flawlessly be able to say, yep, this is what happened and here's what I dealt with and it sucked and here's what I do every day, and every day isn't great and that's fine. It's amazing.
Well, you've got your challenges ahead of you, Jake, with IVF, and hopefully it comes through the way you want it to, and generally with IVF, you're going to get twins or triplets or
I
something.
know,
like
that's
that.
what they keep telling us. I'm banking on twins.
You probably will end up there. But a lot of people say that having kids changes your life and changes your perspective, and it does. I don't think there's any question about that. And I think until you get there and you do that, you'll that day you'll know it, and you'll go, I think I understand what everyone's been saying to me.
I'm holding my breath to get it as well.
No, I hope you do, mate. I know I've had lots of friends and family who've gone through IVF and had those challenges that you're facing right now, and it's not easy. Many of them have had really, really tough times, so completely acknowledge what you're probably dealing with and the challenges you're facing. But hopefully you get there in the end, mate, and it'll be worth it.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
As I said, I play to win.
Yeah, that's it. So,
well, thanks again for coming on the podcast. And
appreciate you having me on, mate.
Everyone who's looking to support the Toby Foundation, jump on the website. It's going to be in the description below. And until then, be good to your mum, because we are out.